So yeah, I'm Phil Bass with University of Idaho. I came down. I'm stationed up in Moscow. Live in the town of Troy, if you know the area at all. But yeah, I teach meat science classes and introductory animal science courses. And today we're going to take apart a side of beef. And so hopefully you guys do have questions as you go along. We can just answer them. And did anybody have any burning desires, questions beforehand we get started? You're like driving over here and you're just thinking, I bet he doesn't know this. And I'll confess if I don't. So, no? Nothing? We're good? I'm going to cut with my back to you for a little bit, but you'll be all right. This is my good side anyway, right? So, okay. So, first off, we have this piece right here. This is called rose meat. Rose meat, or this is like that little fly twitch muscle down in their flank area. Okay. Overwhelmingly, what we do with this is just make hamburger out of it. It's a lean piece that's very, very tough. However, there is now some Argentinian cuisine that's starting to pop up in the U.S. And the Argentinians use this kind of like we would do a brisket, low and slow. They make a roulade out of this, and they call it matambre. Mata hambre. What does that mean? Hunger killer. That's right. I don't know. That's a good question. Probably anything you want. If it's Argentinians, probably they stuff it with beef. Because it's like turf and turf. They just eat a lot of meat. So, all right. So, more hamburger.
I think we need some more liners.
Oh, gosh. Sorry. This should be right there behind you there. Yep. All right. So that comes off. Then we're going to go off to the flank. So the flank's right here. Flank steak sits right on the other side of this, nice and cool and firm. This is that udder fat, like I was saying. So udder fat is smooth. Cod fat looks like a cluster of grapes. Cod fat is what is the fat that fills in after we castrate a steer. Udder fat, obviously a heifer, never had testicles. All right, so we're going to follow this seam to expose the flank steak. So there's the flank steak right there. We'll just make this cut and open it right up. Okay. Maybe I'll do that later. Thank you.
Yep.
So we'll come back to the flank steak. Now that we've taken the flank steak off, I want to cut into some of this udder fat here, because up underneath there is a muscle that I want to peel back before I cut the round off. If we don't, then we'll end up losing about a quarter pound of tri-tip, and that would be a sin. So there's the tri-tip right there, and I've already kind of nicked a little bit. This is all just beautiful udder fat. Now I'm going to go into the bin here. So I'm going to peel back this point on the tri-tip right here. Okay, so that's peeled back. Now I can make my cut across here, and I won't hit the tri-tip, okay? With my tiny saw. So we come to the end of the sacral vertebrae. Do you sing this song with your kids? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sacral vertebrae. All the time. Good. So you come to the end of the sacral vertebrae, 5 sacral vertebrae right off the edge of the hip bone, or the H bone right here. H bone, A-I-T-C-H, not the letter H. And this particular plant does something really cool. They actually detach the hip bone during the slaughter process. That actually allows some cool air to get in there. Does a better job cooling the hind legs. Most of the large packers don't do that. So we're cutting across there, cutting across the pelvic girdle. And then there should be just a little point of hip bone right about there. It's all right. I watched a YouTube video on this, remember? So. All right. Now we have a loin and a round, almost. I just don't want to cut on the table, so. There we go. Loin and a round. Okay. We'll come back to the round. Work on the loin here. Okay. I guess I'll do the flank steak while we have it. So the flank steak, here's another item that has gained in popularity over time. Brajol, that's kind of the Sicilian way of saying it. They drop the last vowel often. But here's flank steaks. Got a little firm right there. There we go. Okay. Sits in its little pocket right here. We cut the end off, and then we just have to liberate it from its little pocket. Look at that. It's a little flank steak being born right there before your eyes. Oh, so freaking adorable. Look at that.
Delicious.
And delicious. Yes. So flank steak, good with some marinade usually. So help to tenderize it just a bit. And then you could definitely go to the grill with it. I've had it stewed, had it braised for sure. So a number of different ways of going about it. I don't.
You do too much hamburger. More finger steaks.
More finger steaks. You can make finger steaks out of that. It's kind of like my Mexican butchers. Oh yeah, we can make arrachera out of that. Yeah, the whole thing, right? So yeah. So finger steaks. Yeah, we can make finger steaks out of that. Yeah. All right. So next, I need to take out this kidney fat. Just like everything else in life, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. This is the right-hand side. And so the kidney fat is tighter on the right-hand side. The left-hand side, I could have probably just shoved my hand right up there and pulled it. The right-hand side is just how the digestive tract sits in the abdomen. The right-hand side just happens to be a little bit tighter. But peeling back all of this tallow right here. The majority of this, up until maybe 3 years ago, the majority of this went to one of three places in this country. It went to pet food, livestock feed, so chickens and pigs, and biodiesel production. Now, I would say the majority of this is probably, it's still a good chunk going to animal feeds, but the majority of it's going to biodiesel and jet fuel production. So the piece I'm cutting out right now, this is abdominal muscle. It's obliquus abdominis internus muscle, which just really means the odd-shaped muscle in the abdomen internally. There's a really cool muscle that's in the chuck roll. If we were to dissect that out, it's called the obliquus capitis caudalis, which means the odd-shaped muscle behind the head. Science. We're not terribly imaginative, right? So it's just I don't know. It's the weird one back there. So this is the sirloin flap. Resembles skirt steak a little bit. Okay. And in fact could very easily be used for that, but also known as a bavette. And so if you've heard of bavette steaks, so you cut it long ways. Definitely could make finger steaks out of this, but cut it long ways, you grill it like that, and then you slice it and fan it out on a plate. That's classic steak frites in Quebec, and it's ubiquitous in Canada, in French Canada. So bavette, skirt steak but it's thicker, so it has a little bit more yield to it. It's a great piece of meat, awesome for carne asada type applications as well. Okay, make a pile here. Get my fat chunks out of the way. You probably don't want the kidney. You want the kidney? Yeah? Okay. You gotta cook the piss out of it. That's the one piece on the animal I can't eat. I can't do kidney.
My stepdad's Welsh, and they used to
Yeah.
eat faggots and haggis and
Yeah.
all of that. And, yeah.
I can't do kidney. I can eat everything else. All right. So, next I'm going to go ahead and pull the whole tenderloin out, the whole boneless tenderloin. Every cut has a consequence. If we were going to cut T-bones and porterhouses, we would cut right here, cut the tenderloin right in half. For the restaurant that this is going to, they'll probably rather have a whole tenderloin. And so I'm going to go ahead and come right up here, up against that, that hip bone, and start loosening that tenderloin. And then up against the lumbar vertebrae, and loosen that tenderloin. Why is the tenderloin so tender? It's like a question, class. Why is the tenderloin so tender? Really doesn't get used. So let's look at this for just a moment. See where it sits. That's the tenderloin right there. This is the animal. If you're looking right down its forehead, this is the longismus dorsi. That's the strip loin, or becomes the rib eye as you go towards the head. Tenderloin sits right there. It's just hanging there on the animal. Literally just kind of hanging there. So.
Elastic band instead of out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they don't need this, right? We use it to keep from tipping over backwards, okay? They don't need that. So the only time they'll use this, there are two times. If an animal rears, they'll use it to help stabilize, or if they're twerking. You'll have to look that one up on your own time, okay?
I'm sure there's some interesting
Yep.
things.
Well, I was thinking
My agent will like that.
Your agent won't like that.
Is there a difference in the male and female? Like, are the females using that to give birth? Can you see a difference between them?
No, I don't see any difference anyway. I mean, that would be interesting to do some what we would call morphological measurements, but no, because the birth canal uses smooth muscle, and so the uterus is all smooth muscle. It sits way up here. This is just back support, yeah. And for quadrupeds, they just don't use it, yeah. So I'm rolling that tenderloin out. This will make it into what's called a pismo, P-S-M-O, not like the beach in California that I spent way too much time at, but the pismo, peeled side muscle on. That's what it stands for. Very common term in the meat industry, in the restaurant industry especially. Just like that. And there is the side muscle right there, okay? The side muscle. There's also this other little side muscle called the iliacus, but the main side muscle is the chain on the side, and then to peel it, you just grab hold of that, cut some of that fat off. Not too much. You can always cut more off, okay? There's your pismo. All right? I'll still be able to demonstrate to you a little bit of some of the anatomy of the T-bone, but it's not going to be exactly the same. So I'm going to come to the very last lumbar vertebrae. Cut down through there. Should just be the very tip of that hip, right there. Good. All right. Sirloin, short loin. Cut 1 inch off of the eye on this side. We have one rib bone. Which rib bone is this? 13. 12th and 13th rib is the separation. So it should just be 13. Yeah, okay. Interesting though, there are a number of cattle that are starting to show up with a 14th rib. It's kind of like a floater rib. Some of them have an actual proper rib. Why do you think that's happening? Are they GMO cattle? Yes? No. Freaks. Why is that happening? Because we're breeding them to be longer. Yeah. We just keep breeding them to be longer because all of that middle meats, the back meats, are the most valuable. And so we've done this in pigs a while ago in the 90s. Prior to like the early 90s, pigs only had 14 ribs. Now they have somewhere between 14 and 16 ribs, depending on some of the breeding that's in there. Okay, it's just because we keep breeding them longer. All right, and so nature just says, well, fine, if you want to breed them longer, I got to put some support in there. And so they're putting an extra 13 there. Wiener cows.
Double down the amount of.
Yeah, we don't need all that shank meat, right? Let's drop those suckers to the ground, lowriders, baby. Yeah. Of course, they get high centered on a hillside, but other than that, they hit a gopher mound and it just.
Not a lot of flat ground. But we're working
No, we'll figure it out. All right, so we got that last rib right here. Again, this isn't a how-to because normally I would, if I had a bandsaw, I would chine this, but I've done these a lot, so this should go a little better than the rib did. But this will allow me to keep some of that bone intact, and you can kind of see the shape of the T-bones and porterhouses. Okay. So I'm cutting down what's called the transverse processes of the lumbar vertebrae. A little extra badonkadonk on this girl here. There, okay. Alright, I'm just loosen on the hinge right here. And that becomes our boneless strip loin, New York strip. Got a little cleaning up to do here. There we go. Yeah, so bone-in strip loin is often called a Kansas City strip. And then if we left, so there's the T on the T-bone right there. Okay, so if we would have left the strip loin plus the tenderloin, that becomes T-bones and porterhouses, bone-in. Bone-in strip loins, you usually cut this part of the spinal column off. Okay, chine it again. All right, then we got our boneless strip loin. This can go in the box.
We'll consolidate after.
Yeah. Good. All right. A little fat. And then we have our top sirloin, or our top and bottom sirloin. So we'll take the bottom sirloin off first. That requires to take the ball tip first, and then the ball tip is cradled by the tri-tip down here, okay? So the ball tip just sits in this little pocket. Attaches right at the socket joint of the ball and socket. There's the ball tip. These are great little roasts. I've smoked these before too, and if you take them as long as like you would a brisket, they'll actually shred like a pork shoulder. Makes awesome taco meat. So ball tip. And then at the base of the top sirloin is the tri-tip. So this is all top sirloin up here. There's the tri-tip down below. So I'll find that seam and cut right on that seam. Liberate the tri-tip right there. Okay. Come back to the top sirloin. Knock some of this fat off the tri-tip. I like a fat-on tri-tip. Most don't, but that fat is really, really tasty. It's highly recommended you have a fire extinguisher handy if you're going to grill that. But if you keep it kind of an indirect, but you make it hot, but just indirect heat, you're usually going to be pretty good. But most tri-tips anymore are just going to be peeled, so I'm going to go ahead and peel this one. So you take that fat, just push that fat right off of there. There. There's your little tri-tip. Fat cap. All right. Then we have our top sirloin here. The top sirloin. Somebody asked about the picanha, right? Yeah. That's it right there. That's the cap of the top sirloin. Yep. Kind of comes out looking a little bit like a more compact tri-tip. It's going to be leaner than a tri-tip, but usually consistently a little bit more tender than a tri-tip. Also known as a culotte. So you just follow that half moon shape right there, and we're just cutting this away. So there's your top sirloin. And I'll go ahead and just prep this so that it's easier for the end user. I'm going to pull off this one piece of muscle right here. It's just kind of got some chewy stuff to it. Makes great stew meat, ground beef kind of thing. But we call this the mouse. I don't know why it's called the mouse. I think that's a terrible name for a piece of beef, but this is just the attachment muscles to the top sirloin, hamburger. And then for the cap, the culotte, the picanha right here. Picanha, if you've ever been to a Brazilian style steakhouse, that's their go-to. And then you're left with the center cut top sirloin. And the center cut top sirloin, this is the gluteus medius muscle. This used to be the main event for the top sirloin. You guys heard of a baseball top sirloin? Baseball style top sirloin steak? You pretty much just start cutting steaks out of this. There, right about there. It's about the size of a baseball, okay? About 8 ounce, 6 to 8 ounce. Outback Steakhouse popularized that cut, actually. But what's interesting is there's so much demand for this top sirloin cap now that the center cut top sirloin is now a byproduct of the top sirloin. Isn't that crazy? Because people want the cap so much, the culotte, the picanha. All right, so there's that. I'll leave a bit of fat on there so that they can use that if they want to cut steaks out of it, they can, or they can peel it, make roast. Okay, there's the picanha right there. Good? If anybody wanted to steal a box of meat, this would probably be the one you want to take, okay? That's the highest dollar value right there so far, by all means. So you want this big bone too? Yeah. Okay. All right. A little fat. And then all we have is the round left. Okay, big guy. So the round, it's a lot of meat, but it doesn't take that long to go through.
That would be a steamship.
So if it was a steamship round, we actually would have cut it right here. So we'll still take the H-bone out. We square this off so that this can then stand up straight. Okay? And you would cut this off and French the shank. So it's a handlebar. If you've ever seen this, it's a whole round that's roasted. It's a really cool presentation. And what's also neat about it is that you have a degree of doneness for everybody on that. Close to the bone, it's rare. Further away, it's going to be well done, and everything in between. And it's just this most magical presentation if you go to a big banquet hall. I remember the first time I saw one, I couldn't believe it. It was just so cool, yeah. But you also have to have a very big oven. So I'm going to go ahead and cut into this H-bone. This is the A-I-T-C-H, not the letter H. H-bone, this is an old English term for edge. So it's the edge bone. As you cut the leg off, you have this edge right here. It's the edge bone. H-bone, H-bone, that just becomes hamburger. You got this little bit, or finger steaks. You cut this hole open right there. And now that bone is sitting there like a cupped hand. And so I'm going to come in from this side and just start loosening that. Got the ball and socket joint right here that we're cutting into. Okay, the ball and socket joint of the hip. We're going to do half of a hip replacement here. Pop through the tissue that holds that. And again, I'm just feeling with the point of my knife the whole time. And pop that hip bone right out of there. All right. Okay. Now, we've taken the hip bone out. This is the top of the round. What cut do you think sits right here? Top round. Literally, that's where it got its name.
Picking up what you put down.
Because yes, that's right. Meat science, right? So yeah, literally, it's the top of the round. It's the next thing that you would cut after you take the H-bone out. So now a lot of times we'll just hang these, and it's really easy to debone these when they're hanging, just because you can really see the seams, you can lean into it, but this will be just fine. So we're following down the edge of this muscle right here. That's the hamstring. That's the semitendinosus eye of round. Follow that down. We come over here, and we'll have our indicator muscle right there, the sartorius. That's just kind of a sacrificial muscle right there. And you can see these nice big seams that open up on the round. So this would be the inner thigh. The top round regularly is going to be cut into like London broil or roasts. If you're looking for a really good jerky item, top round makes really good jerky too. There's the top round right there. Next we'll go after the eye of round, sits right here. Again, that's the hamstring. Eye of round, it's one of those that a lot of people seem to buy a lot of. I think it should be illegal to cut steaks out of these because I don't think we're doing anybody any good. They look amazing, They're probably the most commonly sold steak in a grocery store because they look perfect. They're nice and perfectly round steaks. They're very lean. And they almost look like big tenderloins. And what are people going to do with that? How are they going to prepare that? They're going to grill it. This is one of the toughest muscles in the whole carcass.
That's a perfect
It's what?
Cube steak.
Cube steak. It's great for cube steak. Exactly. If you can tenderize it, you're going to be ahead of the game for sure. And I think it makes great cube steak. Unfortunately, we sell a lot of those as a whole muscle, just grilling steak. And I don't think we're doing ourselves any service by doing that. But it's. All right. Then we have the quadriceps, also known as the sirloin tip or knuckle. And we have the kneecap that's right here. It'll come with us. The patella. So there's the knuckle, sirloin tip. Again, this is actually the continuation of that ball tip that I showed you earlier. This is just the bigger chunk of it. And with the ball tip, this little guy that I mentioned you could slow cook and it shreds like a pork shoulder, there's the rest of it right there. Okay, so you just get a lot more of it. If you think of Cuban cuisine, there's the Cuban knuckle sandwich. Cuban cuisine uses pressure cookers a lot, and so they can tenderize things really, really well. And so they'll put this whole thing in a pressure cooker, and then it just shreds, and does an amazing job with that too. Okay, I know not a lot of people use pressure cookers, but there's this magic kettle thing. What is it called? The Instapot. Instapot. I call it the magic kettle because my wife makes beans in like an hour. So I don't use it because it's got too many buttons. I'm just a meat and fire kind of cook. I'm a little more Cro-Magnon that way, I guess. But yeah, you could totally put chunks of this into that, and it would cook really, really fast. Okay. All right. A couple things left on here. We have the bottom round that's left on the bottom, and then we have the heel. The heel is the equivalent of our calf muscle. And so it's the gastrocnemius, calf's calf. That's going to come off. Gastrocnemius makes great stew meat. We also will use it for ground round because it's a lean item. Has a lot of connective tissue, and so unless you're into like slow cooking and stuff like that, it's one of those that you probably need to just go ahead and grind. We actually ship a lot of these overseas for countries that do appreciate a lot of slow cooking or do more boiling of meats and stuff. Okay, so that's that little guy right here. The Italians call this the gallinella. This is the little hen. Kind of almost looks like a little chicken carcass once you pull it out. This might have been trussed up. Just like that, okay? But it does have this really heavy piece of connective tissue that runs through the center. This is called the superficial digital flexor. We'll make boxes of just that section and ship them to Taiwan and Vietnam, and they'll put it into soups and stuff like that because they'll really appreciate. So if you've ever been to a Vietnam restaurant, you can get tendon soup there. It's going to have stuff like that in there because they really appreciate the gelatinization that comes from that. So hot gelatin essentially. Okay, and then you have your bottom round right here. Bottom round has amazing flavor, not terribly tender, but if you smoke the bottom round, it is surprisingly similar to brisket flat. So the lean part of a brisket. So I've done a little bit of work on that before. Don't call it brisket because it's not brisket, but it is incredibly similar in texture, in flavor, and everything. Okay, so there's the bottom round flat right there. If you wanted your traditional rump roast, that'd be that section right there. And the culottes already in there, but the culotte was a section right off of that. So it's all one muscle. It just, where does it sit on the animal? And how much work is it doing? Further down the leg, it's doing a lot more work, and so it's going to be less tender. All the way up here over the top of the rump, it's sitting on top of another muscle, on top of two really weird fixed bones. It's not moving, okay? And so it's very tender up here, right? And then you get your rump roast, which is kind of in the halfway in between things. So all this is just shank meat. I'll debone that out, but guys, we're running out of things to talk about. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys today. So what kind of questions do you have? Thoughts? Good?
Next class.
When's the next class? Tomorrow? I don't know. No, I don't know. I'm more than happy to continue to coordinate with the team here, and I appreciate you letting us come and make a mess at your shop. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Good. Yes.
We'll try and do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. This was awesome. So, good place, good venue.
So you do pigs as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We'll try and get
Yeah. Pigs are easy. Pigs are just chunks. So yeah. 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 We can totally do pigs. Yeah.
Do you do all meats?
Yeah.
Like if you were to choose more less used meats, would you?
Such as.
I'm not really sure, but
Okay.
one of the organizers was talking about like we should do other fish. We should do goats because there's a whole.
Yeah. You don't want me to do fish. I'm not a fish guy. No. No.
I would go to goat class.
How was that?
Goats.
Goats? Yeah. Yeah. We can do goats. Goats. I mean, you're pretty much like a sheep. Yeah. Take it apart like a sheep. Yep. They're just a little bit more delicate. So. Chickens? Yeah. Chickens are fun. Chickens are easy. Yeah.
Just had a whole goat cook last weekend.
You did you? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, goat meat is.
Mexican style. It was delicious.
It's awesome how I love how goat meat is starting to make this slow surge in the culinary world. It's kind of like the offals, you know, which used to be just straight up poor people food, and now it's being very gentrified, and like the fanciest of restaurants are trying to serve sweetbreads and you name it, liver and things like that. And so taking everything from the poor folks. What are we left with? T-bones and porterhouses. Sons of guns, huh? You don't want to eat that, none of that business. So, so yeah, it's kind of neat how a lot of these more peasant-type foods, peasant-type cuisines are really starting to make a surge in the culinary world. And honestly, I strongly believe it's because of just the interest in food in general, but I also believe there is a big interest in bolder flavors, stronger, bolder flavors. So I first finally observed, so I've done a lot of dry-aged beef work in the past with my previous job, and then we've done some dry-aged beef research, and so I have a pretty good understanding on it. And I just didn't quite understand, however, why. Why was it such a popular thing? Because not everybody liked it, but I did, okay? And then I was just standing in the beer aisle one day at a grocery store, and you have this two ends of the spectrum. You got Bud Light over here, and then you have an entire section of IPA. Every version of IPA you can imagine, but bold in your face, punch your nose down flavors kind of stuff. And it's almost like maybe we're just swinging this pendulum too far, but I think people understand that there is this broad spectrum that our palates can detect, and this IPA phenomenon happened where it's like, wow, beer doesn't taste just like water anymore, right? It's got all these other things going on. And so that's why I think, you know, goat meat and lamb has really gained in popularity a lot. And I think folks are just excited to try something different now. So
I've said it for a long time. America as a whole is not very creative when it comes to food.
No.
Other countries are far and above what we are.
Yeah.
So if we were to do a lamb class, would you be able to get a bunch of different cuts like you just did here? Because I have a restaurant owner that says that lambs are bred to be lamb chops, period. They're lamb chop meat only.
I'll argue with that because I did take his lamb class. Up in
We did more than lamb chops, right?
Oh man,
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
So we need to do that.
Yeah, we could totally do something like that. Yeah. And I'd bring my bandsaw for that.
And you mentioned drying. Have you ever done stuff?
I have done dry curing in the past. Yeah. I can talk sausage and salami and things like that. I'm a little, I don't know. I have the whole meat science community that's just a little overly cautious when it comes to some of that stuff. But yeah, I'm more than happy to kind of talk through things like that. I'm especially, folks that are just getting into sausage making. Let's just make a good fresh sausage first before we start making something complicated like a salami. Idaho sucks for making salami.
This is good.
Yeah.
Yeah? How do you just have everything hanging in the bathroom with the shower on the whole time? Because it's too damn dry around here.
I have a smoker and all that stuff. I've made Italian dry salami.
Okay. And you're able to you're able to control the humidity?
Yeah.
I've had a heck of a time with it out here. So, but I grew up on the coast, and then I spent time in Ohio where it's just sopping wet all the time too, and so we were able to make salami out there. Well, guys, thank you so much for taking the time. Yeah, thanks. I took you away from your Saturday on the river. I'm sorry, but anyway, thanks, guys. Yeah, I appreciate you.